Do you remember the movie Support Your Local Sheriff? It's from 1969 with James Gardner and Walter Brennan. Very funny movie. It was one of my favorite movies growing up. We had it on VHS at our house. You remember those days? So Support Your Local Sheriff. And toward the beginning of the movie, the sheriff, James Gardner, he goes into the local saloon to arrest someone for murder. And during the arrest, he chews out the people. He says, "There's been 3 killings here today, and the sun hasn't even gone down yet. Now I want you guys to knock off this foolishness." So he arrests the man, they leave. And as soon as he leaves, the bartender says, "You guys heard the sheriff. No more killing until the sun goes down." And someone's like, "Is that what he said?" Close enough, Okay, so in today's homily, I would like to ask everyone to be extra attentive to what it is that I am saying. So this homily is not a controversial homily. It's not even a heavy homily. I've given those before. But it is a homily in which my words can be misunderstood quite easily. So I just ask you to pay careful attention to what I am saying. And because we record everything here at OLGC, if there's any kind of misunderstanding, you can always listen to the homily again. So today I have 3 challenges for you. So the whole COVID-19 pandemic, things change very, very quickly, so I hate to speak too definitively on things, but it looks like, in a sense, we're coming to an end. I mean, there'll be a while before there's any cure and whatnot, but we're coming to some kind of an end here. A lot of you have heard that we will be allowed to resume having public masses on May 19th, just a few days away. And many states are relaxing many of their restrictions. So we're kind of over the edge there. We're coming to a certain end. So as we approach this end, I would like to ask you, what are we going to take away from this whole experience? What are you going to learn from all this? If we had a chance to go back to the old normal, would we do it? Or better question, should we do it? Should we just go right back to the old normal? I am a firm believer that every situation carries with it something we can and should learn. Wouldn't it be a pity to have gone through one of the greatest crises, one of the greatest worldwide crises in the last century, and to have learned nothing from it? So, that's the first challenge. The first challenge, what are we going to learn? What are we going to take away from this whole experience? And there's so much we can learn. It's a very open-ended question. I'll leave that with you. Okay, so moving on. So my buddy, Archbishop Fulton Sheen, when he speaks about the devil, he points out how God, to Moses, God says, "I am who am." If that's what God says, the devil, in a sense, says, "I am who am not. Don't believe me, I don't really exist. Ignore me." The devil likes to work slowly, trying not to be noticed. I am who am not. So Fulton Sheen often gives the analogy when he's talking about the devil. He says how a frog it's like a frog being boiled slowly in water. He says if you put a frog in a pot of water and turn up the heat just ever so slowly over a long period of time, the frog will eventually be boiled alive. And you will notice that the frog never struggles against the heat. It never noticed there was a problem. It was always too gradual. And that's exactly how the devil likes to work. Ever so slowly, ever so gradually, hoping we never wake up, hoping we never notice his ways. So in my opinion, this is exactly how things have been going with electronics over the past few decades. And please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that all electronics are intrinsically evil. They are not. But I am saying they're dangerous. They're really dangerous in a lot of ways. Through electronics, we are more connected than ever before, but studies have shown we're lonelier than ever before. Electronic connections are not real connections. And that's how so many things work. Oh, I'm lonely. I think I need Facebook. And you go, ooh, I'm lonelier. I just need more Facebook. And it's a very, very vicious circle. And really, this is how addictions work also. Okay, I'm going to go on a little tangent here. I can't help myself. So, this is also how the news works. In 1967, in his book Guide to Contentment, Fulton Sheen, he wrote against news on the hour every hour. Why? Because the news fools us into thinking we're in reality. When you watch the news, oh, I know what Trump said. I know what's going on with Flynn. I know about Obama. I know this. I know that. I'm in reality. Okay, but what's reality? God is reality. There's nothing more real than God. And while you're watching the news, being sucked into all these things, you've not entered into the silence. You've not gone to God. You're farther from reality than ever before, but you think you're in reality. We've been fooled. We've been duped. The news is very, very dangerous. The news gives us the opposite of what it promises to deliver. Drugs also give us the opposite of what they promise to deliver. Electronic communications, they give us the opposite of what they promise to deliver. So for decades now, back to our analogy, we've been the frog in the pot of water. And the heat keeps getting turned up little bit by little bit, not quite fast enough for us to ever really notice and take action. But now, because of coronavirus, the pandemic, overnight we all had to quarantine, we all had to do communications through electronics. And so we all got sucked into doing electronics all the time, and it's like the heat was finally turned up, like a lot, all at once. So through this experience, I hope we notice the poverty of electronic communications. Has everyone had enough of Facebook yet? Enough Skype, enough FaceTime? Is everyone zoomed out yet? I know I am, and just from talking to people, it sounds like a lot of you are too. How many of our grandparents would love to hug their grandchildren, but you can't give a hug through a computer? All the emojis in the world don't equal being in the physical presence of one we love. So yeah, I think, and I really hope we are wising up to just how insufficient electronics are. They take us to some dark and empty places, and it gets emptier as we get further into it. And honestly, throughout this pandemic, we are getting a glimpse of hell. We're really getting a glimpse of hell. All the separation from people, that's hell. That's really the definition of hell, is separation. Okay, so this brings me to the second challenge. I hope one of the things we take away from the pandemic, from all this quarantine, is the poverty of electronic communications. They are not enough. We are made for so much more than they can even offer. I hope we feel the reality of that separation, the reality of the emptiness that electronics leave us with. Man was not made to live in separation. Man was made for communion. Okay, so to move on to the last point, we finally get to today's gospel. In today's gospel, our Lord tells us, I will not leave you orphans. I will come to you. On that day, you will realize that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I in you. I will not leave you orphans. I am in my Father, you are in me, and I in you. We are made for communion. For communion for each other, yes, sure, definitely. But more than anything, we're made for communion with God. And that's the very definition of heaven. I've said that before. So it's been tough for churches during these times. It's been tough for everyone during these times. And us churches are all struggling financially, and everyone else is struggling financially too. I understand. And with such struggles come certain temptations. You know the old saying, out of sight, out of mind. This is very true, and for so many things. When public masses were suspended, many churches' offerings went down by 50%, even more. So we all face the temptation, out of sight, out of mind. Well then, I need to get in sight. I need to get in mind. So we all as churches, went to electronics. We kind of became like our own TV stations overnight. And honestly, at times, I think we may have gone too far. We may have helped to tie people to their electronics instead of tying them to God. So us churches, now I'm not just singling out OLGC, I'm just speaking in general. Us churches, we sent out all these videos on how to pray, how to encounter God. But honestly, the first step to prayer, the first step to encountering God is silence, is turning off the electronics and entering into silence with Him. We don't normally encounter God through electronics. Honestly, I've heard many conversion stories. It's one thing like in seminary, you hear all sorts of conversion stories. I have yet to hear a conversion story of someone whose big turning point was on Facebook. Yeah, we don't normally encounter God through electronics. We encounter him through silence. So my third challenge to you, last challenge, have you encountered God during these times? Have you had the silence you need to encounter God? What would it take for you to have some silence? Okay, so to conclude, I'll just re-echo my note of discretion from the beginning of this homily. The devil loves to push us to extremes. So I ask you to not take my words to extremes. I spent some time bad-mouthing electronics. True, very true. But please don't take me to an extreme. Oh, Father Dave says all electronics are evil. I didn't say that. I stated that we churches have produced perhaps too much electronic media type of stuff during these times. Okay, yes, definitely. But please don't take my words to an extreme and think I'm against live stream masses or reflections recorded homilies. No, that's definitely not true. All I'm saying is us churches in general, again, not singling out OLGC, throughout the world have gone a little overboard at times, thus disturbing the silence it takes to encounter God. And I'm not trying to play any kind of blame game. That's not the point. I just want to encourage you to enter into the silence and encounter God. Okay, so the three challenges again. Number one, what will we learn from this quarantine? Very open-ended question. Number two, the poverty of electronics. They're taking over the world and we are not the better for it. And then number three, it takes silence to encounter God. Do you have that silence in your lives? I'm praying for you all. We remain united through Christ. God love you.